Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the DNA Sports Talk Show here on the Warrior Network. I'm Davis Gregory, and with me, as always, is Mr. Andrew Cross. And today, we're going to be reviewing Super Bowl 53, which went down a couple weeks ago. The Los Angeles Rams played the New England Patriots in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It was an interesting Super Bowl, to say the least, Andrew, and a defensive battle is exactly how you could describe this game. If you were a defensive-minded person, you love this football game, but if you're offensive-minded, you probably turned it over to something else. It was just kind of, if you looked at it from an offensive standpoint, a terrible game, but a defensive standpoint, you could find some joy in it, but still, nevertheless, there wasn't really a particular Super Bowl moment, in my opinion, that was in that game.
No, not at all. You know, Patriots, it was 13-3 was the final score. You know, only one touchdown scored. It was a 1-yard rushing touchdown by Sony Michel. And I just think Jared Goff wasn't ready for the moment. You know, he's a second-year quarterback, got drafted number 1 overall. You know, he was okay his first year, but the second year, you know, he comes in, they're 13-3. They're the best offense in the league. They roll through the playoffs, get a little lucky in the Saints game, and they make it to the Super Bowl, and they score 3 points. I mean, Sean McVay said it himself. He just got out-coached by Bill Belichick, who him and his defensive staff were sending full-on blitzes, just trying to make Jared Goff as uncomfortable as possible, and it worked. Todd Gurley wasn't at full strength, and you know when Todd Gurley's not at full strength, that offense isn't going to be running the way it normally does. And give a lot of credit to the New England defense. Adrian Claiborne, Dante Hightower came in with a lot of sacks in that game. Their defense had a lot of sacks as well. Turnovers. And, I mean, Brandon Cooks had a bad game, the former Patriot. He had two drop touchdowns, right. And, you know, that would have tied up the game at 10-10, but still. And then it was that field goal by Gostowski that really put the game away. I mean, if you want to call that a defining Super Bowl moment, I guess you can, but it was 10-3 at the time. It was about a 48-yard field goal, and he nailed it to basically ice the game with 2 minutes to play.
Right, and really in this game, we'll kind of remember it as always the Tom Brady 6th Super Bowl ring. But again, as he said, if you want to call Gostowski's kick a Super Bowl moment, but it really kind of wasn't. I mean, if anything was a Super Bowl moment, it was Gilmore's pick. But as you said, with Belichick and that defense, they just sent blitzes the entire game. I think some of the blame, and you could say most of it, can be put on Jared Goff. But that offensive line has got to do something. They can't just let him get hit back there and just have to run around for his life. I mean, and they protected him pretty decent all year long, and then you get to this game and you decide not to communicate whatsoever and just let Dante Hightower flow right through your offensive line and nail your quarterback. I just don't understand that. So I think the offensive line is to blame. Goff, of course, to blame. I mean, first overall pick a couple years back and now in the Super Bowl. Definitely think that he just wasn't really ready for this moment. But still, I mean, Bill Belichick, that was a game where you could see that, again, as you said, Sean McVay said, I was out-coached, and he was. The defense was more prepared. The offense just found more ways to make plays than the Rams did, and that was your ball game, really.
Yeah, Bill Belichick, what he normally does in these big games is he takes away your opponent's, the best thing that they do on offense, he takes it away. And on defense, he takes that away and makes sure you can't do it. And, of course, the Rams' forte is running with Todd Gurley and C.J. Anderson, that little that 2-punch combo. But still, like, the outside zone, the West Coast offense that the Rams run, it did nothing, and it forced Jared Goff to make throws, and he just couldn't make throws. He was horrible under pressure. He just threw picks. Still a great season by him, right. Obviously an MVP caliber season, but still, I mean, the man was just getting sacked every time, like you mentioned.
Exactly.
The play-action game was not working at all, which is their bread and butter. That and the outside zone were their two main plays the entire season. And Bill Belichick read him. He read the scouting report. He knew what to do on defense, and he really routed their offense. Obviously, one of the best offenses I've ever seen play football in the NFL.
Right, and I think one last thing before we go, that Todd Gurley only had 10 carries in that football game.
Might have been hurt.
10, well, still, I mean, he came out and said, "Oh, I'm not hurt. I'm fine." Obviously, there is something wrong with him, and I understand you kind of want to keep that secret and everything, but still, just for your best player to say, "Oh, I'm healthy," and everyone else to agree with him, and you only give him 10 carries.
I think also it has to go back to the fact we've seen all these Super Bowls in the past, And it always comes down to the defense. Which defense plays better? Obviously, Super Bowl 50 was that dominant Broncos defense. Super Bowl 48 was that dominant Seahawks defense. The Eagles defense, even though they got ran over and got 40 points dropped on them, they made stops at the end of that game to win that game. So I really think it's going to come down to whose defense shows up and plays better, and that was the Patriots defense in the Super Bowl.
Right, and the Patriots defense, I think, a lot more experience than the Rams, and that's just what Super Bowl 53 came down to, just experience. However, not the worst Super Bowl. I will say it did keep our attention, though, throughout that third and fourth quarter. Game was tied at 3 when Zerline made that kick, but then everyone was just still tuned in because they thought that Goff and the Rams would find some way to put the ball in the end zone, just unable to make it happen. Worst Super Bowl, though, probably Super Bowl 48 that I can remember. But anyways, that's a discussion for another day. We want to thank you all for watching DNA Sports Talk Show, and we'll see you all next week.